Ingrid and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is going to be a really fun video. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and like how companies are using these big picture concepts right now to aid their organizations, and then we're going to try to draw some like big picture conclusions about how this stuff is going to shape up in the future. So stick with us because it's going to be a fun video. So before we move on, subscribe to my channel because that's a great thing to do, and give me a thumbs up below. First of all, let's define AI and artificial intelligence. What is it? AI artificial intelligence is basically like algorithms, computer code that uses a bunch of data to learn on its own to achieve some goal. So computer programmers tell the algorithm, like, this is our goal, we want you to be able to do X, and then as you get data, like, learn from it. If you made the correct choice as an algorithm, then save that data and like slightly strengthen that network, response. And if you made the wrong choice as an algorithm, then learn from it and try to do better next time. So that's what artificial intelligence is. It's basically a computer program that gets better at doing its job the more data that it sees. So the first example of AI being used today is going to be like a supermarket with no employees, like Amazon Go, where you would just walk into the supermarket with your cell phone, you can look at all the food in the supermarket, and it knows what you pick off the shelf, and you can check out without actually having to like pay with a card or with cash. So in Amazon Go, there are actually like cameras on the ceiling that watch you and then can collect information and data on everything that you do. So what are some things that Amazon Go is watching for as you're shopping? It's watching to see where you stop and look at things but don't purchase, and that's like a data point that it saves. It's watching to see what you're interested in, what types of food you like, what gets purchased more than other things. It's a smart grocery store that's tracking absolutely everything about consumer behavior and then learning how to be a better grocery store from that data. So another related example is like a robot cafe. So a cafe where the server, instead of being a person making your drink, is a robot. Or in China, they have robot like restaurants where you order through a smart device and then a little robot like comes up to your table and gives you your food, and even the robots in the kitchens are making the food. So a smart cafe is like a robot-powered food establishment, basically. Another application of machine learning, AI, and big data is like smart governance, and there's a lot of dystopian theories about this, like surveillance capitalism, where the government would literally know like everything that you're doing and know everything about you, which is kind of creepy, but it's already being done in China, basically because China has like a system where the government can tell companies what to do. China can get any data that it wants from any company in China, and they have giant headquarters in China now that run completely based on data. Like, they know how many hospital beds are available in a certain hospital, like how many people are sick. They can tell like when a person is getting sick. If you cross the street illegally, they like downgrade your social score in society or something like that. So they're like measuring everything that you do and keeping track of it. The US government is also doing this to a certain extent, but because of the laws and stuff in a democratic society, the US government can't just be like, Amazon, give us all your data. They have to pay for things and work out agreements. So the US government currently is a customer of Amazon's when it comes to facial technology recognition. And for cops to identify criminals correctly, they use Amazon's facial recognition technology to see, correctly identify criminals, basically, and it has radically improved their rate of correctly identifying criminals from like photos taken by bystanders and stuff like that. So big data and machine learning is actually going to be really big in medicine and is already doing amazing stuff. Something that I think is particularly cool is a lot of the wearables that we have, or even just our smartphone, which typically people carry with them, can be used to measure things about our bodies that can detect medical illnesses faster. So like if you have your smartphone in your pocket and you're walking or whatever, they can track the walking wave measurements of a person who's healthy versus a person with Parkinson's and detect early onset of Parkinson's like X% earlier than traditionally possible with just regular medical diagnoses. So I think we've all heard about self-driving cars. So obviously the transportation industry is going to be affected by machine learning and by technology, and cars and trucks and different things will be able to drive themselves. The shipping industry is another really incredible industry where automation is now being where giant shipping containers that are actually really dangerous for people to be moving and working with can now be moved by cranes, and people are then used to work at the plants and help the machines move things around. But anything that is a repetitive process, basically a machine can be built to do that better than people. And then there's the food industry at large. There's a lot of food waste in America and around the world, and companies and places that provide food don't always know how much food is going to be bought on a certain day or something. So there are some startups now that have CTOs, chief technology officers, that do a lot of data analysis and write algorithms to figure out how much pizza a certain community is going to want on a certain day, and then really accurately predict that and eliminate a lot of food waste. So the food industry, other than just having robots serve people, every industry is going to have more predictive models and better assessment of supply and demand and stuff through algorithmic analysis. So this is the part that I think is more interesting, other than just the different industries that are being accelerated by technology. But what are some big picture thoughts here? So there's this guy named Yann LeCun, and he won some giant computer science prize for his work in neural networks and deep learning algorithms. He actually, I think, is so much more realistic about AI than so many people. So many people blow it up into being oh my god, the AIs are gonna turn on us and take over the world, and so he's basically his life mission is to try to figure out a model of human learning that's analogous to a bird versus a plane. So we didn't build a plane to fly in the exact same way as a bird with feathers and bones and etc. But we figured out a model of flight that was worthy for our applications. And so his work in computer science and learning is trying to figure out a model of learning that can be comparable to a human brain, or do a lot of the same things that a human brain is currently really good at doing. I really enjoy thinking about this whole concept of collecting massive amounts of data as a big data simulation. So imagine any human expert and what they know. Imagine a model in a computer that collectively amassed all of these people's understandings, and then this is a worldview, a world model. So imagine if every single company's data could be combined in one place to create a giant data map of every activity that had ever happened on Earth through data, right? So China is basically able to do that right now because they can take data from all of their different companies. In America, I don't know who would be able to do that exactly, but the closest thing we have right now is Google, Amazon, Facebook have massive amounts of data about individuals and about certain areas of the economy that they dominate in. So one thing that's interesting is on Amazon, every click and every mouse hover actually is correlated with 50 columns of information. So Jeff Bezos actually realized really early on in the development of Amazon that figuring out what you want to record before you need it is more expensive than just recording everything. It's not that hard to just record everything, really, and then just store it in a database somewhere, and if you ever need it later, it's all there. Anytime that they want information, they can go back to those records and try to manipulate the data in a meaningful way. Another big picture conclusion has to do with data ownership. And right now, companies own all of their data, and either the government could make some kind of law that they're able to get that data from companies, or there might eventually be some type of private data ownership model where individuals could decide that they want to own their own data or even be paid in exchange for the data that they personally provide. So data ownership, I think, is going to become a bigger and bigger topic as we move along through history. And another big picture conclusion is what does it take to make a truly intelligent machine? And I think the model of birds to flight is a good way to think about it, in that we could simulate learning to an extent, or maybe, you know, to a very accurate and amazing extent just through computers. But I think like the next huge like paradigm shifting breakthrough is definitely going to be something like Neuralink, or something where the human mind can actually interface somehow with the computer. Because if our mind could tell the computer exactly what we were thinking, like, first of all, we could probably train AI like way faster like that. Also, some interesting ideas about like having a collective mind is like if the mind could somehow connect to the computer, you could have hive mind, you could have mass mind of many, many people. When you combine the minds of all people on Earth, you basically get enlightenment, because everybody knows something different, right? So what would happen if we had like an enlightened species? I don't know, would that eliminate the point of being on Earth, which is to try to get to enlightenment, in my opinion? And how would that experience shape society? If you were connected to all beings, would you realize that you're not alone? Would you be less selfish? Would you stop perceiving your experience as one of an individual experience and one of like a collective experience? I really don't know. I think the repercussions of that technology advance would be very unforeseeable. So then we move on to like job security in the job market. Obviously AI and automation are going to affect a lot of jobs, and there's going to be a lot of transition. Anytime there's transition, there's controversy and etc. So a city council member in Seattle actually said that she thought the tech industry was to blame for a lot of homelessness in Seattle. A lot of people that have working class jobs actually can't afford to live in the city anymore where they work, which is, you know, a problem. So I think there's different solutions to this problem. A lot of like liberal people and educated people think that big companies should be taxed and pay others who don't have the tools and resources to contribute at those companies. I think that like data ownership is a potential model or a solution where if individuals own their data, they might be able to be paid accordingly to how much data they provide to an institution. Or just like way better options for education is something that like no one really ever talks about. Like, what's the problem here? Like, why can't certain people understand how to contribute in this new world? It's like because they're not educated to do so. So like that doesn't mean that these people there's something wrong with them. It just means that they don't have the tools yet. So I think a revolution in education is kind of around the corner. So that's what I've got for today on AI and big data. I think I'm just going to keep learning about these topics and keep giving you guys more content because it's interesting and cool. And definitely my biggest critique of the whole like AI machine learning movement thing is that AI is, I think it should be called like algorithmic intelligence or something like that instead of like artificial intelligence. It's kind of hyped up. Like people think that AIs are gonna like take over the world or like take over us. And I think like the rate at which things are changing is an unprecedented rate, and that's scary to people. And so they want to like demonize the technology or something like that. So yeah, definitely subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and definitely drop me a like if you learned something from this video or thought it was cool and interesting. So hope to see you guys next week. Peace.